Welcome to Seavine We the People. I'm here again today with our favorite Seavine attorney, Ron Osk, who has his business in Riverside, California. He's an elder law attorney, and he is our go-to guy for a lot of legal questions. And so we are bringing him here today, like we are every week, to answer some questions that come in from a number of our audience. But before I do that, I want to share my screen and show you a new thing that Seavine has. And I think you're going to really like this because Ron has been added to it. Ron has his own column. I think that's pretty cool. So for those of you that haven't been on here before, please go to c-vine.com. We have regular breaking news every single day. It's updated 24/7. So if you want to see what goes on, we do all the vetting for it. And also, if you will notice here, at the top of the page in the taskbar, we have an education section. That's what's new. And this is where we have added Ron to do his regular column. So just for your giggles, I'm going to be showing you exactly what that is. When you click that link, you will be going to the education platform. Remember, the E in Seavine is for education. So we have multiple channels and everything that you can learn from, all different types of things that you may be interested in, and they're all experts in their field. So it should be quite interesting, and it's free for you to use. And we just added a news station, which is where we are putting Ron. It's for the retirement channels. And so we have Ask Ron Ask in there. And that is going to be where he answers a lot of the questions. And we are going to be showing him the recorded, putting the recorded shows in there. We're going to be having more retirement channels coming up soon also. Expats, dating after 50, RV lifestyle, and then of course we have the business channels that has all different types of things that you may want to learn, natural health channels. So that's enough of that. I just wanted to show you that that is a new thing that we have added in our c-vine.com website. So please come visit us there. Also, for those of you that want to have regular conversation for all the various different things that we talk about and or the news that we show, please go to our Facebook group page, which is Seavine News Talk. That's a Facebook group page, Seavine News Talk. And we have well over 30,000 members in there, have a lot of active conversations. We do research. So it's all a good thing. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to get back to Ron here. With this pandemic and the shutdown that's been going on, I mean, the elderly have always been rather vulnerable for many different things, as Ron will be able to tell you. But it's unusually bad now because of the shutdown. They're even more vulnerable. And so what we wanted to, Ron was going to discuss with you today, having to do with elder abuse. Individuals that take advantage of the elderly in many different ways. And if you have a mom or a dad, or even yourself for that matter, and you want to protect yourself against some of these things, he has some suggestions for you. He's going to tell you a few stories of what happened and how the problems could have been prevented. So welcome, Ron. Thank you for joining us today again.
Glad to be here.
So let's go ahead and begin. Why don't you start out with maybe the most common scenario that you see in your firm and what to do about it, and we'll go from there.
First of all, let's talk about a couple of things that that aren't probably going to get us anywhere. Number one would be if you've been wronged, if somebody's taken advantage of you, I don't know, wouldn't you call the cops? I mean, that's the instinctive thing to do, right? Somebody steals your car or steals your money, you call the cops. Unfortunately, when it comes to this type of thing, dealing with seniors, I'd say that maybe 1 out of 50 or 1 out of 100 might bring out an investigation, might. that investigation would probably, my experience has been, it'd probably take 2-3 years. And then there's no guarantee it'll go anywhere. So I'm just telling you, if you are wrong, somebody steals from you, by all means call the cops. But they simply aren't oriented or trained to do much about stuff like this. Now, here in California, we have adult protective services. Part of every county has adult protective services. Well, they're sort of a quasi criminal investigation type thing. So you call them, they come out to the house, knock on the door, ask if they come in, ask you if you're okay. Yeah, I'm okay. Is anybody abusing you? Well, not really. Okay. And then they ask to look at your refrigerator to see what's in there. And as long as it isn't full of stale food, they'll thank you very much. And then they have a confidential report, which nobody has access to. So that's not really going to help you. If you are one of the unfortunate people that have been badly treated in a nursing home, and that happens all the time, it's usually because of a staffing problem. Usually there aren't enough staff people. I don't personally do those cases because I refer those cases out to a couple of different firms, one in LA and one in Orange County. That's mainly what they do, and they're very, very good at it. So what I do mainly is deal with kids stealing from their parents. Now, it isn't always kids. Sometimes it might be the hired help, or it might be a brother or a sister, but generally speaking, it's kids. But what do they steal? Well, the first thing they do is they persuade you that it's time to get their name on your bank account so they can help you pay the bills. Yeah, and so elderly people do this all the time. They bring their son or daughter down to the bank and say, okay, add my son or daughter to the bank account because they're going to pay my household bills. They'll pay my utility bills. That's just the beginning. That's for openers, okay? Then at some point, they'll say, well, it's time to protect your home. A lot of people could come after your home, so the best way to protect your home is to put the house in my name, or at least put my name on the deed, okay? So just like that, now they control your bank account and they control your house, okay? And you haven't even figured out what's been done to you until maybe you've aged, you're not as strong and alert as you were at one time. And then now's the time when they can make their move. And a lot of times, they get tired of waiting for their payoff. So some of us don't die young enough. Some of us live to be a ripe old age, and then they run out of patience. So they find ways to get their hands on your house or your cash because it just doesn't seem fair that they should have to wait till you die. Do you understand? There are certain cultures, and I say cultures, that where it's common as could be for the title to the house to be held just in the name of the man. This is certain. I don't have to tell you which cultures they are. If you've, I think you may have some idea who they are. So the wife's name never gets on the deed. Then at some age, in the late 70s or early 80s, the father then decides it's time to deed the house to the oldest son or the oldest daughter. And for the life of me, why this happens, but I see it all the time. I've had women come to me that were in a second marriage. Let's say they marry a widower. And 13 years later, the widower dies, and the wife finds out that the widower had deeded his house to his son, and his son is now evicting the wife. She's out in the street after living with the guy for 13 years. So there's 100 ways for this to be done. Very often children will approach the parent and say, listen, I'm in a bit of a jam. I need $50,000 worth of cosmetic surgery because I'm getting older and I'm not as attractive as I was at one time, but for 50 grand, the doctor can make me look like I'm 25 years old again. So if I could just get you to borrow a little bit of money from the mortgage company that'd help me out. And of course, the kid, I'll help you make the payments. Sure, you better believe it. So not only now have they talked mom or dad, both of them, into hawking the house to get 50 grand for their folly. In the process of this, mom and dad are sitting there signing papers like crazy, right? They're at the loan office or the real estate office, whatever. They're sign here, sign here, sign here. They don't always read everything they sign. They look at it. It looks legal. It looks official. So I sign it. Well, guess what? Very often, son or daughter slips the title to the house in front of them and says, sign here. And all of a sudden, the son or daughter is on the house as a joint tenant. Parents don't know it. Okay? So then you end up suing the kids, right? Well, nobody takes those cases on a contingency. If you're going to sue the kid to get the house back, you're going to pay us or somebody else thousands of dollars, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 or more, $1,000, maybe 50 grand in cash to sue the kid to get their name off the title. Another situation where I can't really blame the man, but this widow woman makes payments on a house all by herself for 30 years, and she marries a real nice guy. Well, she wants to do the right thing, so she voluntarily puts him on the deed. Maybe he talked her into it, I don't know, but she puts him on the deed. Then they decide that they need to borrow money. Chances are he's the one that persuaded her that they have to borrow the money, so she agrees. They go to the lender, and meanwhile, they create a trust. They create a trust and put themselves together, owning the house, into the trust. They get to the lender, and the lender says, look, I'm sorry, but we won't loan money to a trust or to a trustee of a trust. So they say, but not to worry. We'll go to an escrow company. They'll roll the house deed back out of the trust, back into your name, do the loan, and then the house will be put back into the trust. It'll be very simple. Okay, this lady agrees to it. They go to the escrow company. They take the house out of joint tenancy, whatever it is, or out of the trust. They do the loan. They, refinance the house, borrow 100 grand or two, I don't know. Then the old guy dies. And guess what? The house was put back into their name, but never put back in the trust. Furthermore, while it was not in the trust, they put it in tenants in common, which means that his children now own half of her house that she paid on for 30 years. So now she's got a stepdaughter that lives in Hawaii who owns half the house. We're able to go into court, and we did some legal research, and we were able to persuade a judge, a very kind judge, to put the house back in her name. We attempted to sue the bank that did all this stupid, dishonest work. And they told us to go fly a kite, which meant that our client would have had to spend 50 grand just suing the bank for their stupidity. She didn't have that kind of money to squander, and she shouldn't have had to. But I'm just saying this is what you run into. Now, if elder abuse has occurred, let's say that you believe that somebody took advantage of somebody, there's laws in the state of California that give you a little bit of an advantage. And here's the way it works. If you suspect that it's usually a child, but it could be a stranger, has committed elder abuse, we're talking about financial elder abuse, talk you into putting their name on your deed to your house, talk you into putting their name on your bank account. If you simply are able to prove that there was a confidential relationship between you and them, and if you're able to prove that they participated in this in any way, shape, or form. They took you to the bank, they took you to a lawyer, they took you to a real estate broker. Any kind of active participation could be enough to flip the burden of proof. You also have to prove that you suffered and they benefited. Mm-hmm. But it's enough to flip the burden of proof. And now instead of you having to prove that they exercised undue influence, they have to prove that they didn't. And it's a tremendous tool to help you if you get into one of these situations. But again, unless it's, let's say, $50,000 to $100,000 that you were beat out of, it doesn't pay to go after them. You'll spend more money than you'll get back. But there's some other code sections that I might be able to rattle them off here real fast. There's the Welfare and Institutions Code of California, which talks about undue influence, vulnerability of the victim, the influencer's apparent authority, actions or tactics used by the influencer, equity of the result. So the Welfare and Institutions Code gives you a leg up. It gives you a little bit of an advantage when you go after people that have done this to you, okay? Then there's Civil Code 1575, which is almost parallel to the Welfare and Institutions Code, but the two code sections, Civil Code 1575, you put them together and it strengthens your case. Then, a few years ago, 30 years ago, there was a dishonest lawyer in Orange County. Heaven forbid, I didn't think there were any dishonest lawyers. I'm shocked to hear that there was one, but it is what it is. When the dishonest lawyer had a client doing a will or a trust, if the client was starting to get a little bit feeble up here, the attorney would persuade them to leave him the house or leave him the bank account. Nothing wrong with that, right? Instead of leaving it to their kids, they'd leave it to him. Well, the cops finally caught him and put him in jail, and then they took away his license, so he couldn't do that anymore. And then they changed the law. So Probate Code 21380 provides that if anybody who helped, if they drove you to the lawyer to get the will made or trust made to leave it to you, if you participated in any way, you're barred from receiving anything. Okay, so Probate Code 21380 gives you a big advantage. If that person held power of attorney, let's say that you give one of your kids power of attorney so they can act for you if you're unable to act. If they then take you to the lawyer's office or someplace to do a trust or a will and leave them the property, or if they go to a loan office, a bank, persuade you to put their name on the deed, loan them some money. Again, Probate Code 21380 will void that out if that person that brought you there held a power of attorney over you. That makes them a fiduciary. Fiduciary is somebody that you trust. So that voids out the deal and you get the house back. Then there's some case law. The well-known case of Rice versus Clark. It's a 2002 case. It says the same thing. If you had a confidential relationship, there was a confidential relationship between the victim and the person that ended up with the house or the money, and that person was actively involved in any way, shape, or form, they lose, and you get your house back. So there's also a Civil Code 1573 for constructive fraud. The difference between constructive fraud and regular fraud is that constructive fraud provides that you don't have to prove there's an evil intent. If you accidentally steal somebody's property without lying, stealing, or cheating, you just get them to do it, you're guilty of constructive fraud, and that's another way to to reverse the deal. The same thing there, if there was a confidential relationship or a fiduciary relationship, the wicked kid loses and you win. Now, you can claim mental capacity, but that's a tough one to prove, okay? In other words, to prove that you were out of your mind when you signed the papers. That's probate code 811. Once in a blue moon, it works, but it's not an easy one. So in any event, there's probate code 8. If you win, let's say you win, probate code says you're entitled to 859 says you're entitled to double damages. So if they stole 100 grand out of your bank account, maybe you get 200 grand back. Let's presume they have 200 to give you. Usually they're broke, so you're lucky to get your own money back if you can get it back, okay? So, and sometimes if you're real lucky, under Welfare and Institutions Code 15657.5, you can get attorney's fees. But again, your case has to be, you know, almost letter perfect. So there's some remedies. There's a number of code sections that give you a leg up, that give you an advantage if somebody takes advantage of you. Now, what could you do? When you go to do a trust or a will, the most important part of that thing is not who you're going to leave your property to. Yeah, that's important. That's what most people think, right? I need to do a will or a trust to make sure my kids get my property. Well, they're going to get it no matter what, but here's the deal. If you're doing a will or a trust, the most important thing you're going to do is to name somebody that you absolutely trust. Who's that one individual that you know would never steal a dime from you, would never take advantage of you, and can be accounted to make rational decisions that you favor. Now, this could be both for financial purposes or separately from that, it could be for healthcare purposes. Something similar to a do not resuscitate. So when you do the trust, the most important thing you do is to determine who is that one human being that you totally trust to make the right decisions for you. And then you want to get a backup for them. So if that person gets hit by a truck, there's somebody waiting in the wings that equally honest, equally prudent in terms of making good decisions, not just honest ones, but good ones. Good money manager, whatever the case may be, responsible person, trustworthy, loyal, like the Boy Scouts, right? Then you name that person as a backup. Then one little paragraph, you can say, well, child A gets a third, and child B gets a third, and child C gets a third, and end of story, right? You've done it. So that's how you do it. Now, let's say, for the sake of argument, there's nobody that you trust. And I'd hate to think that any of our audience is in that position, but maybe you never had any kids. Or maybe you have kids, but they're a little bit irresponsible or a little bit greedy, who knows? You can name a professional fiduciary. There's people who are private parties who are licensed and bonded by the state. So if they steal the money, the insurance company pays it back, okay? And we do trusts all the time where there's nobody in the family that the old folks really trust. So we name the fiduciary, the professional fiduciary, as the trustee, and they make the decisions instead of the untrustworthy child. So I'm just telling you, there's a way to do that. The other thing is that there are instances where you'll need to take everything you have and put it into an irrevocable trust. That's provided, again, you have somebody that you totally trust to be the trustee. Under an ordinary will or trust, you retain title to your property till you die. With the irrevocable trust, you give up title. Title's held by that trustee that you've appointed. They don't own the property. They simply hold title in their name, in their capacity as trustee. You don't own it. This is frequently done in order to enable people to obtain veterans benefits, the non-service related benefits that are available to veterans. It's also sometimes done to enable people to obtain Medi-Cal or in-home support services if somebody needs care. But those are two devices that are available to help, again, to help protect your property so nobody can get their hands on it.
That is outstanding information, Ron.
That's the end of my sermon for the day, okay?
Well, you've answered a lot of questions for me. I'm pretty sure you have for a lot of people, because you covered all aspects of things. Nobody likes to think that a family member would take you for a ride, especially after you've lost all your faculties. That's just almost incomprehensible. But you've given all kinds of options, things to do in case you are in that position. And taking care of things sooner rather than later, obviously, is a good idea.
Good idea.
So anyway, thank you again, Ron, for joining us. We will have you back again next Friday.
Good enough.
And we'll have another conversation.
Good enough. Have a good weekend, everybody.
You too. Take care, everyone.
Okay, bye now.